Curse of the White Corsair, Book 2, A Cornish Concubine, St. Cavern, Cornwall, 1626. Jane Joseph Ann Gove sat enwrapped by the stove, listening to her grandmother's story, the tale retold of an ancestor of old and the fight for Cornish glory. Michael Ann Goff, your far tas gov, the year 1497, when the king taxed tin so your distant kin roused fellows from here and Devon, a fearless force that set their course, marching for the mines to return. A glorious day as they marched away, the jewels of St. Cavern. Pride powered the hearts of Celtic sorts that tasted liberation. Glory be as great the thought of Cernow's foundling nation. More men merged at Bodmin Moor to tread the shies to Kent. 15,000 rebel corps armed with discontent. To Blackheath and to Ravensbourne and battle by the river, where for all their gallantry the king looked like the winner. With no support, still some success, yet foes were far too many. But grave injustice to redress fought on though losses heavy. To Deptford Bridge where they held the ridge and captured Daubeney, they held that edge till some cursed snitch set that baron free. Why set him free, Lord Daubeney, when we could have recouped? Who'd let him off to seek Ann Goff, then the callous English swooped. Catastrophe and fatally and final was the rout. The Cornish for their bravery destroyed in the dispute. They caught Ann Goff in Greenwich, and before they cleaved his head, "My name shall be immortal," the last 6 words he said. Had London Bridge adorning, trophies on a shank, heads to a Cornish warning, Ann Goff and Tom Flamank. Catastrophe, now vagrancy, they wrest our lands when they wrest his life, whence the English came to pillage. A century of bankruptcy, still our name have the love of the village. Michael Ann Goff had your golden locks and your sun-filled look on life, and if he had had a victory, nay a pauper, but a titled wife, if only he had victory and conquered the crass Anglian, would have our family history cushioned by the champion. A hero's blood runs in your veins, his loss was our lament, a saint who sought smash Saxon chains from whom you are descent. Jane Ann Gove dozed by the stove, soothed by Mam Gov's tales. Jane Ann Gove, just 12 years old, rewrote bygone details, in which she rode a carriage beside the Cornish king, linked to him by marriage and wearing Cernow's ring. The English opposition, as echoed in her dreams, was beaten to submission, and she smiled to hear their screams. Night muses span to nightmares, the opening ordeal, by cruel and callous Corsairs, who'd caused the screams be real. A blizzard pierced the lizard, swarmed the hordes through St. Cavern. The feeble old were littered as they set the thatch to burn. The feeble old, the lame, the bold, scattered as no loss. They cut down cuffers insolent enough to flash the cross. They scimitarred the brazen off the heads of those in prayer, hung the haze as burning babies, stung as acrid was the air. The blazing fire of Islam's ire quenched all Cornish grit. Rough raiders raided maidenheads as maidens sobbed submit. Silhouettes like marionettes blazed in flaming homes, plunging to infernal depths from desperate ordeal groans. Jane lost her voice that hellish night as though her throat were iced. She lost the will to flee or fight when Nana's neck was sliced. She lost her voice that vicious night the crimes occurred, resulting fright she'd not recite another Cornish word. As a straw-stuffed hempen sack, he dragged her with her hair, a leaden lump through the attack by the black Corsair. Glassy-eyed she stared ahead as though she could not see. Blind and mute the brute maid bled the place where she made pee. 'Twas the Janarissy Hamid kept on kneading her as dough and pushed his stinking fingers in spots they shouldn't go. The crossing stripped her naked, each darkness seized her chance to sin against her sacred parts, succumbent in a trance. 2 weeks of violations, praying down below, that her distant dead relation would waken, hear her woe. 2 weeks of molestations, suffered stiff as stone, now mammoth undulations where much semen got upthrown. Sheathed in sick, stiff as a stick when hit a wild cyclone. They tossed about the whitecaps, she was tossed from side to side, and he tossed himself to climax as he straddled her in stride. Sif hell itself had opened up, with Satan ridiculing her rigid utter helplessness and frigging whilst he drooling. And though an evil deviate, whom frantic fawing spray, the ugliest degenerate, her cousin, urged her play, told her to reanimate, else die before the day, proclaimed except to penetrate when Hamid went away. For Hamid's threats weren't hollow, and if she loved to live, be best bestir and swallow it, and be prepared to give. But as the whirlwind was allayed, pled Hamid for his prize, for Jan soon had claimed the maid, arisen at sunrise. Jan stored her in his quarters, where she ate a little food, then told her to prepare for a life of servitude, and for that preparation was barbarous abused. After docked at Tunis port, towed to the Souk el Burka, changed into by a cursory court, her cousin to a martyr. Her cousin who'd objected, object inside him, whom they brutally dissected, limb from limb from limb. A jigsaw of her cousin's parts was strewed across the square. Dripping blood off shitty hands, they tugged her itty hair, when made her stand upon two stools, as more men came to stare at prepubescent genitals and tittered her despair. She cried as hounded by the crowd, gawking the dissection, who clucked as anus, ears, then mouth was fingered for defections. And still no phantom farrier came forth to fight the foe, to free her from Barbaria, though frantic willed it so. No fabled family member appeared to fell the freaks, who pinched her skin to injure her and bruised both buttock cheeks. No gallant ghostly ironsmith up-gallered up for protection, shielding her of a ghastly shame the merchant men's inspection. No spectral knight sat on his steed, dispersed the mocking mass. No cavalier in hour of need came kill those come harass. Instead 6 soldiers of the day fettered her and 4, and led the fairest 5 away as chattel of the boar. As assets of the sweaty swine, each would earn their keep, mounting the pot-bellied pig while Yusuf squealed beneath. Overriding their revulsions, riding it aghast, enticing to convulsions and more sordid tasks if asked. 5 terrified fair fledglings, instructed to give praise, and considered it an honour to fornicate the day. 5 terrified fair fledglings, 5 West Country maids, told to count their blessings if tabbed to ride the day. Some cajoled, some scolded, all warnings were unheard. Blue beaten and blindfolded, she'd still not speak a word. 2 years did as expected to give the pig a root, though dangerously directed, not persisting on a mute. In grave danger as instruction, speak or else she'd die. She stayed silent in seduction in the day's palatial sty. The patio of the palace came the morrow due to be burnt, though proficient on a phallus, no Arabic word she'd learnt. Come morrow and remission by the Sultan's emissary, who took her in addition of 2 as tributary.